And we are live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast, to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into tonight's recap of the Detroit Pistons versus the Orlando Magic, I want to talk to you guys about a few quick things. If you are new to our channel, make sure to subscribe. And if you like today's recap, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. And so that you can be the first to know about all our uploads to this channel, make sure to hit that post notifications button. It looks like a bell on our YouTube profile. Another thing, if you aren't so much into long form content, still subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on Instagram, because almost each and every day we are posting around 30 to 45-second clips of mainly the highlights of each and every upload, whether it's the Saturday posts episodes or it's the Revved Up recap. So make sure to still subscribe and follow us on Instagram. Just keep tuning in to our YouTube Reels or our Instagram Reels. That's about it for today. Let's get into tonight's recap of the Detroit Pistons versus the Orlando Magic. Tonight's final score was 111-99 in the Orlando Magic's favor. And Ryan, tonight's game, the Pistons had a 10-2 start, and then the Orlando Magic matched that with their own 10-2 run. And it just kind of seemed like that was the common factor. Everything that we did, the Orlando Magic had the same kind of oomph behind their play to match everything that we had. And when looking at the box score and breaking down each quarter, the big thing that pops out to me is the Pistons allowing 33 points in the fourth quarter. You usually want to keep teams around 20 or below. That would be terrific. But in today's NBA, in like a team like the Orlando Magic that have so much powerhouse talent, you're going to lose games when you allow 33 points in the fourth quarter. Ryan, your first thoughts?
Yeah, when you think about who the Magic have, you look down the roster. Obviously, Paolo Banchero, solid player. Franz Wagner, go blue. But then outside of those two, you have Jalen, you have Suggs. Suggs is okay. He's not anything fantastic, but he can give you a hard time from time to time. Jonathan Isaac, same thing. Mo Wagner, same thing. Cole Anthony. The list goes on. They have a pretty solid roster in Orlando right now. Their record might not show it 27-23, but they are still one of the better teams in the East this year. But when you're trying to contain these guys, it like the game against the Clippers the other night, it's tough containing top tier talent. We had our way with Paul George, had our way with Russell Westbrook, but then Kawhi Leonard was a factor. Today, same thing between Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. Obviously, you want to slow down Paolo Banchero because he's going to light you up. And we did. We kept him to 20 points. That's great. But then Franz Wagner, who is a scoring machine, lit us up for 38. It's kind of hard to the common factor in these teams that we're playing right now is they have a Batman and they have a Robin, or they have a Batman, Robin, and the Joker with the Clippers. They have top tier talent all around, and it's tough to really slow down all of them on any given night. And if you take away Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, and honestly, keep Paolo Banchero in the game, but you take out Franz Wagner, this game, in terms of those runs for the Magic that happened, I don't really think that those really happen, but a big reason they did is we turned the ball over.
So if you're a Pistons fan and you're looking at the box score of tonight's matchup, you see the Pistons finish with 15 turnovers. But that's not exactly the whole story, because the Pistons had 11 turnovers in the first half. And so they did a great job of protecting the ball in the second half. So I don't think that's necessarily the reason why the Pistons lost tonight's matchup. I think it really just came down to not being able to slow down Franz Wagner, finishing with 38 points, 17 of 25 shooting, 4 of 7 from the 3-point line. That actually ties his career high of points in his young career. And the Pistons just didn't really have anything to slow down Franz Wagner. And it's an issue because he's just so big, he's so fast, he's so long, and he's just got that great finishing ability. And he's just a total beast, Ryan.
Yeah, if you look back at his days at Michigan, I mean, he was just an absolute unit. You couldn't slow him down. He was always going to score no matter what. No matter what the defense brought him a hand in the face, it doesn't matter. He was always going to take the best shot. He was always going to score. And it's continued on as his time has gone in the NBA with the Magic. And it's hard to contain a scorer. It's one thing to slow him down, like he's a shooter, right? It's hard to slow down a shooter. Like Bojan Bogdanovic is a good example in this situation. The only way you get in a shooter's head is, well, you don't. It's them getting inside of their heads. It's a mental game for a shooter. That's how you get in their heads. But Franz Wagner, he can't just hurt you from deep. He can also drive to the rim and hurt you in the paint too. And so when you limit him from three, he's going to attack you at the rim. If you limit the rim, he's going to attack you from three. There's no right way to balance it out. And that's been a common flaw with not just him, but you look at the other night against the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard, like I mentioned, it's hard to contain scorers in this league today, especially with not a lot of people playing defense. But being able to contain Franz Wagner was the biggest issue tonight because, I mean, you take away that 38 points, like I mentioned earlier, it was just Paolo Banchero, really. And outside of Paolo, like their next highest scorer was Mo Wagner and Gary Harris at 10 points. Like if you contain Franz Wagner, we win this game.
And, this is kind of a bold take, but this is one of the better defensive outings for the Pistons. Now, hear me out, people, because the Orlando Magic only had 4 guys to score in double digits, and they only had 2 starters to score in double digits, which was Franz Wagner, and Paolo Banchero. They held Wendell Carter Jr. to 7 points, and may I add, only 4 rebounds for a center, which is terrible. But then Markelle Fultz with only 8 points, Jalen Suggs with 9, and then Joe Ingles only had 1 3-pointer, and then Cole Anthony only 1 point. And we know that he can go off for 20 on any given night whenever he's feeling it. So really, this was the Pistons' better outing defensively because, yes, they weren't able to stop Franz, and Paolo got his shots when it was needed for the Magic. But really, they kept all the other parts of the team under wraps. And I think that's pretty impressive, especially because this Orlando Magic is no team to blink at. They are a pretty competitive and solid NBA team. The next thing I want to talk about is Jaden Ivey. And when watching the first half, he had 16 points in the first half. And I'm like, oh man, this dude's about to go off for 30. I'm like, oh, what's Jaden Ivey got in store for us? Well, he finished with 18 points. And it kind of hurts. But in the end, Cade Cunningham not struggled, but was quiet in the first half. And then he showed up in the second half for the Pistons. So that's another reason why this Pistons point guard, shooting guard duo is very dynamic, because they show up when each other isn't showing up. So they fill each other's role when needed. And it's a great flip-flop duo. When Cade's kind of quiet and not making a huge impact, that's when Jaden Ivey is pushing the tempo of the offense. When Cade Cunningham is 3-point is falling and he's curating the offense, that's when Jaden Ivey just becomes that perennial help the offense from wherever he's needed. And so I think they're a really good duo, and they're starting to show that they are very complementary to each other, which is great because they didn't really start the season like that.
No, they didn't. You go back to the earlier parts of the season, you saw Ivy coming off the bench. You had Ivy also not playing great basketball. He was playing basketball that we haven't seen him play before. It was bad. It wasn't great. It wasn't just like, I just wanted to close my eyes the entire time. But now the last week or so, he's been on this hot stretch. You've had Russell Westbrook talking to him, etc. And they're really noting like, dude, you're legit. You're playing great basketball right now. You just got to see it through. You're going to be fine. And that's been one consistent factor in us being in these games lately is Jaden Ivey. You take out Jaden Ivey, it's a completely different show. Like Cade has been struggling recently. He's not his normal self. 18 points out of Cade is not normal. It's not typical. He hasn't been hitting a 20-point mark or even like consistently like he had been the 30-point mark in a while. It wasn't until that latest injury that's really slowed him down. But they work so well off each other. And you think back at the historic backcourts that the Pistons have had. You look back, Isaiah and Joe Dumars, and then going to work, you had Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, and then now we have in the modern day, Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham. So there's always going to be a dynamic between two good combination of guards that the Pistons have, and I think it's starting. The light switch is starting to flip a little bit because like Ivey's playing out of his mind, and then Cade is just right there with him. And it's not like Cade is playing like he had been playing, but if he ends up playing like he had been playing, and Ivey can stay on this streak that he has been, my goodness, watch out.
When as analyzing tonight's matchup in the first half, Asar Thompson kind of had a slow start to tonight's matchup. He had 2 consecutive turnovers, and I'm like, oh no, like what's going on with Asar? Is it going to be one of those nights? But then in the second half, he was a big contributor on the offensive end, and then also rebounding, finishing with 17 points and 7 rebounds and 7 of 10 from the field, 1 of 3 from the 3-point line. So he was able to knock down one of those, which I love. But he was having putback dunks, backdoor cuts, and great passing, offensive rebounds. He had 1 offensive rebound right under the basket and then dished it out to Jaden Ivey, where he was right below the free throw line. And Jaden just has a nice little shuffle layup, and then boom, easy buckets. This proves exactly what we talked about on our Saturday's episodes 2 weeks ago, where we talked about where he's just one of these garbage guys. He has those pickup. He just picks up all the garbage on the offensive end and makes things happen and makes winning basketball curated. And I just think that Asar Thompson's kind of fighting himself coming off the bench, had 27 minutes. So he's having starter minutes just coming off the bench, and he's really finding his own in the second unit.
Yeah, when you think about it, the first pressure, well, not the first pressure, the first unit, they always deal with a lot of pressure. You think of Cade Cunningham, think about all the weight that's on his shoulders, even Jaden Ivey and the rest of the guys. Like Kevin Knox as an example. Kevin Knox off the bench can scorch you. He is amazing. Kevin Knox in the starting lineup, it's questionable at times, and you're going, ooh, why is he out there? Asar Thompson in the starting lineup, at times defensively, you're like, okay, this kid's a stud. But then there's times offensively where you're like, why is he even on the floor? Why is he in the game right now? But he, like you said, he has found himself in the second unit, and he's been extremely productive, not just defensively, but offensively. And I do want to make note of the 3 blocks he had, because that's pretty solid. But like we did mention in the episode recently, he excels at broken plays. That's what he excels at. And I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon, because it keeps happening. Like the 17 points alone were all off of broken plays. It wasn't like he was getting catch and shoot opportunities. Well, he could have shot the ball, but he didn't, which is smart, and I thank you for that. But he is excelling in these broken plays, and it's really nice to see, because not only is it nice to have a utility player, but it's also extremely nice to have, as you would put it, a garbage man. If you have a garbage man mixed with a utility guy, my goodness, you might as well just open up a shop down the block, because like this is amazing.
Yeah, and they're going to be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they're always ready to service your garbage. That's who Asar Thompson is. We're gonna have to make an edit out of that, like Asar Thompson in a garbage man outfit or something, driving a garbage truck. I don't know. It's a compliment. It doesn't sound like a compliment, but it is. It is what it is. I was really happy with Jalen Duren's outing tonight. Now, he only finished with 5 rebounds, which is like, okay, I understand. Maybe you could be a little frustrated with that, but 15 points in 26 minutes on 7 of 7 shooting. Our guards on this team tonight really were finding Jalen Duren in opportune moments, and he shot 100% from the field. There's nothing more you can ask from him. He did exactly what you need him to do, catching lob dunks and getting those garbage offensive rebounds and then getting those points up. So Jalen Duren, that was one of the last things I wanted to mention. I was very happy with his play, even though he had 5 rebounds.
Yeah, you think about his role as of lately. He's taking a step back, because like we mentioned, Jaden Ivey is playing out of this world right now, and then Cade Cunningham is always going to be the guy. So he's gonna get his points too and his production up there. And so Jalen Duren has taken a step back within the offense, and that's something to make note of because if you recall, when Cade went out with that injury, Jalen Duren stepped up and he was the guy. It wasn't just Jaden; he was the guy. But then as soon as Cade's been back and Ivy's been doing his thing, then Jalen has been like, yeah, okay, I'm fine taking a step back. I'm fine playing the role that I had been playing and taking limited shots, but being productive still. I'm fine with that. And this, like you mentioned earlier, this Magic team is no joke on defense. They are a very solid defensive team. That's a high compliment because, like I mentioned, this is not a defensive driven league right now. This is offensive driven. So when you have Jalen Duren going up against the likes of a big man and Wendell Carter Jr., who is a solid defender, solid player too, and then even Mo Wagner at times, it's hard to score on those two guys. And the fact that Duren was 100% from the field, making 7 shots, finished with 15 points, had that one free throw. Like, again, there's not much more you can ask for.
Absolutely. That will do it for tonight's recap of the Detroit Pistons versus the Orlando Magic. Tonight's final score was 111-99 in the Orlando Magic's favor. Make sure to like and subscribe and turn on your post notifications button. Be out on the lookout for our Instagram reels and our YouTube reels. And we will see you guys in the next Revved Up recap. Peace.